Botticelli hits my confidence.
Botticelli and Raphael, shirts and trousers.
புதிய தலைமுறை டிஜிட்டல் நேயர்களுக்கு வணக்கம். ஜெய்ப்பூர் சர்வதேச இலக்கிய விழாவில் இருக்கிறோம். இப்போது ஜெய்ப்பூர் இலக்கிய விழாவின் கோஃபவுண்டர் வில்லியம் டாம்ஃபில் நம்மளுடன் இருக்கிறார். அவரிடம் கேட்க நிறைய கேள்விகள் இருக்கின்றன. ஒரு சின்ன சேட். ஹை. India is a country where we have huge abundant source of literature. Huge abundant source of literature, literary works, be it in my native language Tamil, Sanskrit, Hindi, and many languages. However, we had festivals related with cinema for many years here. But organizing a literature festival in India, what was the starting point for this? What made you try this?
So for me personally, I had just finished a world tour with my first really international book, which was White Moguls in 2002. And wherever I went, Indian authors were appearing in Sydney, in London, in New York. But I was living in India and I was aware that these same speakers had nowhere to speak in India. So when Faith Singh invited me to what was a small heritage festival of Rajasthan, the Jaipur Virasat Festival, I encouraged her to start calling more authors because they would come because it'd be great fun, they'd love it. And there was nowhere for them to. There was just a few events in the British Council in Delhi, but that was really all there was in those days. We had more and more. We had 10 the first year, 12 the next year, and it's just grown since then. And from the beginning, we always divided it with me producing the international authors and particularly the non-fiction and history, which is my speciality, while my colleague Namita Gokhale, who is passionate about Tamil, Hindi, Malayalam, Bengali, and the Bhasha languages, which are often ignored and often marginalized. And she is a great crusader for particularly Hindi, because that's her own mother tongue, but also the other languages and South Indian languages. And so between us, we put up a program that's very varied. It has a wide international reach, but it also has a wide spread in India. And I can give you the figures for this year. I just got them, funny enough, on my phone just now. This year we have 16 Indian languages represented at the festival, 8 international languages, and 17 nationalities. So it's both nationally and internationally, we have quite a wide spread. But we could do more. I was recently at the Kerala Lit Fest in Calicut, and that's 60% Malayalam. And absolutely packed out. And often here, our sessions in Bhasha languages, particularly in Hindi and Rajasthani dialects, are very, very popular. And so it isn't like we're doing it as an added extra. This is core for our audience. Very, very popular.
But be it the market, for instance, like if Obama is writing a book or Will Smith's book, there used to be a huge pay. The number of selling copies is huge. Whereas when we come to local languages in India, be it Tamil or...
That's not the case. Actually, the figures for, if you, in Bengali, for example, a book like Charingi has sold, I think, 6 million copies in Bengali. So you're right that there's the less developed
Bengal and
infrastructure.
Kerala have huge numbers.
Bengal and Kerala have huge numbers. I don't know the Tamil figures. Yeah, but in general, I think many of the non-English publishers have less rigorous marketing and sales organizations. But we have here DC Books from Kerala, and they're doing incredible work, producing absolutely international standard books with fantastic covers and well translated. And they sell very well. The numbers are high.
I have listened to your Anarchy book. It deals with how a small organization, a private organization, has acquired the complete subcontinent, and they had their base in Delhi. How they dethroned.
They had their base in Calcutta.
Yes, sorry. You as a historian, you can't switch sides because
you can't take sides.
You can't take sides because to you it's truth. You need to go by facts. Whereas people enjoy fiction. Like they add masala and stuffs to each and every story that is being said in India. How do you see this difference? Because
I don't see a difference at all. I think the best stories are the true stories. And you can tell them boringly, but there's nothing boring in Indian history. And I think I think one of the reasons I managed to make the career I have is that people have found in my books the kind of masala that they find in the cinema or in novels, but it's true. And it's sourced to original materials. I mean, the stories of the massacres of Mughal princes by their brothers, the stories of terrible battles, great love affairs. These things are part of history. They're not just part of cinema and part of novels. They happen in real life. I think there has been a problem that many Indian historians, particularly those of the 60s, 70s, and 80s generations that were Marxists, often used very academic jargon and told their history primarily as economic history, which is what Marxists believe, and cut characters and people and masala out of their history. So as a result, people stop reading it. And as a result, you get WhatsApp university history taking over rather than real history. And there should be no contradiction between telling history properly and telling history interestingly. It's perfectly possible to do both at the same time. And elsewhere, you find in Britain, in America, biographies and histories absolutely at the top of the non-fiction charts, selling every bit as strongly as novels. And that's beginning to change. I mean, obviously, we have a whole lot of young Indian authors like Manu Pillai, Anirudh Kanasetti, who are both from the South, and both of them writing history very vigorously and very accurately, but with taking in characters and peoples and telling stories as you would tell a novel, but sourced to original documents and telling them only things they can prove actually happened.
as a writer, how do you see these podcast era? Because people have started listening to many of your books as podcasts. They just listen while writing and stuff.
There's two different things. There's books
Yes.
on tape or audible.
It's audible.
Which is a great thing, and I don't mind if people listen to it or read it. It doesn't make a difference to me as long as they absorb my work. That's great. But I also have my own podcast, Empire, which has just crossed 20 million downloads, and that's quite heavily Indo-centric. We have a lot of India on the podcast, and this is enormously popular. And certainly, I'd say that as a author, the podcast is now providing me with more income or as much income as the writing, which was not the case a year ago.
Thanks much for your time, William.
Thank you.
It's great. Thank you.
Nandri. Thank you. My one word of Tamil.
ஃபிட்டான போட்டிசலி இருந்தா கான்ஃபிடென்ட்டா என்ன வேணாலும் செய்யலாம். போட்டிசலி, it's my confidence.
Botticelli and Raphael, shirts and trousers.